Hi, welcome to our second Q&A on OET with West London English School. This is my colleague. I will let him introduce himself.
Hi, my name's Harmi and I'm the OET course director at West London English School.
Great. And I'm Beth. I am an OET teacher and I'm also the Assistant Director of Studies. So as we mentioned last week, thank you for sending in all your questions. We had so many and that's why we've got this second Q&A. So we're going to answer those for you today. So our first question is it correct that I can do the exam over 2 sittings if I don't get all the grades in the first attempt? Now, this is true if you are a nurse. It's not true if you're a doctor. If you're a doctor, the first time that you take the exam, you have to get your required scores of all Bs. Now, if you are a nurse, then yes, you can take the exam twice. And over those 2 tests, you need to get the scores that you need. So for example, if you take the test and you get a B in all the subtests apart from listening, maybe in listening you get a C+, obviously that means that you have failed your listening. Now, the second time that you take the test, you imagine you pass, you get a B in your listening, then that means that's great, because with your first attempt and your second attempt together, that means you've got all Bs. Now remember that with nursing, you can get a C+ in writing as well. And one really important thing to consider here is that on your second attempt, if you fail something that you've previously passed, so for example, you can see here that we've got the speaking, reading and writing, and the second attempt was a C+. Now this isn't a pass, but actually when we combine the first attempt and the second attempt, there is all Bs, and that means that the nurse has definitely passed, and then they're free, they've passed the OET test. All right, our second question is, after I pass the OET, can I start working immediately? Harmi, do you want to answer that?
Sure. Well, if you're, was that from a doctor or nurse guy?
That was from a doctor.
Okay. Well, I mean, it actually depends where you are and where you're located. If you're citizen of the EU, then pretty much you can. As soon as you pass the exam, you can register with the GMC. You can start applying for jobs, or if you're already working, you'll find that you can kind of be moved into a role almost immediately. But if you're outside, if you come from outside of the EU, you will have to take the PLEB. And remember, there's 2 different PLEB exams as well. So you will have to do further study. I think most doctors kind of are aware about the PLEB exam. I mean, it's not language. It is actually all about your medical knowledge this time. So basically, if you're from the EU, yeah, you're good to go. Register with the GMC, start applying for jobs. And I think it's the same for nursing as well. If you're from the EU, you're pretty much good to go. You can start applying for jobs and you can start working immediately. If you're from outside the EU, again, I think you need to do further study. So basically, it depends where you're from. In both cases, you can register with the GMC and with the NMC, but it's just if you're from outside the EU that you won't be able to start working immediately. You'll have to do your PLEB, basically.
Great. Brilliant. Okay, our next question is, can I use headphones in the listening exam? No, you can't use headphones in the listening exam unless there are some special requirements where you actually need to have headphones. Harmi, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, that's pretty much it. They don't normally allow headphones. If you do have a specific requirement, they may make a special, an exception for you, but you do need to let them know in advance. Don't just turn up on the day and tell them I kind of have a hearing problem. So as long as you let them know in advance, then you might be okay to use headphones, but normally not.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is it's a question that we quite often have by students when they come on our courses as well, saying, you know, can I have headphones in the reading exam? You know, a lot of people when they're studying, they listen to music and they find that it helps them. No, you can't use headphones in any of the tests unless you have a special requirement. So even for the things like the reading, as soon as you go into the test, they will take your phone, headphones, any kind of electronic devices. So no, you definitely wouldn't be able to in most circumstances.
I think people, a lot of students find their listening quite difficult, and it's something we get asked a lot because they're really worried that they can't hear the audio properly. What if the speakers are of poor quality? What about the echo, or if it just doesn't sound good? And it is tough. I mean, hopefully most test centres are, they do have good facilities, and they should really have a good speaker system. And I mean, there's other things about listening, which is kind of keep practicing your listening. I think people forget that. I mean, doctors and nurses all know you've got a muscle in your ear, I think, and it is actually, you know, the more you exercise your ear, the better you will become at listening. So I mean, keep listening as much as you can.
I would also say if you're practicing listening at home, don't listen with headphones. So, you know, it's probably a different kind of experience if you're doing a test with your headphones. It's everything around you is kind of cancelled out a little bit. But obviously in the exam you're not going to have that. So sit in your bedroom, for example, have some speakers and do the test that way.
But with the, it's interesting because now we potentially have the new exam where you can stay at home. And in that kind of example where you can take the exam in your living room on your computer, I imagine there you probably would be able to use headphones in that situation.
Yeah, this is a new thing we're just learning about. I think we'll probably do a Q&A in the future on this, just to give you a little bit more information when we personally have a bit more information about taking the test at home. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next question. So someone has said, why do I keep failing writing? Harmi, I'll let you answer this.
Well, we had a similar question like this last week. I'm not sure if it was with the speaking, Beth. I don't know if you remember.
I think it was with speaking. It was.
Yeah, and I said, how long is a piece of string? And it's a similar kind of thing. You know, until really we've seen your writing, till we've had a look at it, we won't really know because it could be any number of reasons, to be honest. You may not be familiar with the style of writing. It may be something you're not using the correct kind of the correct grammar, or it's not very well organized, or maybe you're making a mistake with the selection of case notes and it isn't relevant. It really could be any number of things. I know writing, it's an area of the OET that a lot of people have difficulty with, and I think a lot of students who come back to us, it's often because of the writing. And really similar to what I said last week, I think it's a case, you know, get yourself a good tutor or work with a premium provider, someone who can kind of guide you, who can have a look at your writing and kind of pinpoint where you're going wrong. Often it's really worth having a look at the criteria and trying to put yourself in the mind of the examiners and try to understand what is it they expect from me. And like I say, writing is difficult because written English, it's different from spoken English. And you need to produce a certain kind of English, you're writing a formal and professional letter. So you're not dealing in everyday English. Even though you may have good English, it's not really enough. You need to be familiar with this kind of formal written style of English. It may be the case that you just need to be shown. I don't know, Beth, what would you add? Anything to that?
No, I agree with everything you said. I think another thing that is really useful is having a look at some of the sample letters. So, for example, if you go onto the OET website, you'll see some case notes for writing there, and they also have sample letters with them. the more sample letters that you have access to, and the more that you kind of read, you'll be able to judge a little bit better. If the best thing definitely, Harmi, is what you said about having a tutor, like a private lesson, a teacher who can really have a look at your writing and see where you're going wrong. But it is some good advice to definitely have a look at some letters, because then you can kind of work out a little bit yourself. With these case notes, has this, with the sample letter, what have they selected and what did you select? Is it the same? How did they introduce it? Where's the purpose of their letter, and how have you stated the purpose? And I think that by doing a bit of comparison with that can help you. And I'd also say look at the writing marking criteria. The same kind of thing we said about the speaking last week. Check the speaking criteria. Well, the same for writing. You're marked in certain ways on your organisation on, have you selected the right case notes? Are they relevant? How is your purpose? Is it clear? How accurate is your grammar? There's so much stuff that you're marked on, and by becoming really familiar with that, that will help you. And it's something that a teacher would do or should do, is when they're giving you feedback, they'll also give you, here's the marking criteria and this is the scores that you've got, so you'll be able to see exactly what you need to improve on.
I think that's a really good point. Something we do, often when we mark letters and we return them with the marking criteria, so we actually mark your letters with the criteria, and it gives you an opportunity to see where you're going wrong. There's kind of 5 different criteria, and then there's also purpose, and so it's worth knowing what those 5 criteria are. And really, I think it's a really good idea, Beth, what you said. Reading other sample letters. I think one of the hardest things with writing is being familiar with this genre. As we say, it's a formal professional letter, but it's very direct. You're not writing any opinions. It's very different from IELTS, for example. It's not like you need to speculate, or you need to write any kind of opinion at all. It's really just factual. That's really what they want, is a factual letter. And you need to get direct and really just get straight to the point. And sometimes students make the mistake of, they got nice English and they want to show nice grammar structures, and that's great, but it doesn't always fit with this kind of genre of writing. So yeah, get yourself to a premium provider, and you can find tutors, you can find courses where there are writing only courses. So you don't need to do the other skills. I think something like that would help you.
Great, okay. Let's have a look at our next question. So someone said, what is the best way to prepare for reading part C? This is a good question. A lot of people have difficulty with reading part C. Harmi, what would you say for this?
I think read for a start. It sounds really obvious, but I'm amazed. A lot of people who have really good English, but they don't really read. Remember, reading part C, it's quite academic. It's not a simple text you're being asked to read. So the first thing you've got to do is be familiar with kind of reading some quite challenging texts. So you're going to come across some really difficult vocabulary. But read things with opinions and attitudes as well, because in reading part C, that's often what you're tested on. You're tested on the writer's opinion and their attitude about certain things. So it's not just a case of reading scientific journals. That's great, read anything really, but really things like newspaper articles as well, where a journalist is giving their opinion. And, as you read, try and identify, where we kind of say you read between the lines, try and see what the writer is saying without actually saying it. That's something really useful skill to have, almost like inference. But I think basically just read as much as you can. Read newspapers, magazines, academic texts, and ideally things with opinions.
Yeah.
I don't know if you don't, Beth.
No, I think that's really good advice. So there's so many websites, English websites, where they have opinions, even people write in and and factual pieces. Things like the National Geographic is something that's always really good for that. The Guardian, they've got lots of sections with opinions and information. So all of that kind of stuff's really good. Another thing I'd say is it's more in terms of how you approach the test, and different people find that different ways work for them. I think you'd agree, Harmi, that the majority of our students have found that the easiest thing for them is to read the question, but don't read the answers. Don't read A, B, and C under it. Read the question, then have a look at the paragraph that it corresponds to. Read the whole paragraph. The answer might just be in one section, but the chances are you'll need to understand the whole paragraph for you to be able to then actually answer the question. And then you can go back to the question and read A, B, and C. And that's the best thing, is almost kind of you going back and forth and back and forth. If you try and read the whole text in one go, it's too much. You won't remember what you've read at the beginning. Whereas if you keep focused on the question, that will help you. And the reason that we say, and again, this is something that works for most people, it might not work for you. You've got to find the strategy that's right for you. But the reason that we say don't read the answers immediately is because they put in distractors, cheeky little distractors that, you see a word and you look at the paragraph and you're like, aha, that's the answer, but it's not. And this is why, if you've read the paragraph properly, you should then be able to find the answer. Harmi, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, everyone's different, and what works for one person won't work for another person. And I think that's what you've got to do. You've got to try and work out what works for you. I use that method that you were talking about, Beth. I mean, I'll read the question, then the paragraph, then I look at the answer options. And I find if I can really understand a paragraph, it makes the question a lot easier. And often that's what you're tested on. You're tested on whether you have understood the whole paragraph. Some questions you can just read, it's only to do with half the paragraph, and you can find the answer in a sentence. But I think often with reading Part C, they like to know, same with Part B, that you have understood generally the overall paragraph. But everyone's different, and try to see what works for you. Try and read the whole text and go to the questions, but I wouldn't advise that. That's Beth's favourite method, by the way. But she's unique in doing this.
I do like to do that. I like to read the whole thing and then look at the questions, but I'm aware that for most students it doesn't help them. So it might work for you, it does work for me, but maybe not. One thing actually that I would say is that a lot of students, if they read the answers, they find a word, and then they try and find the word in the text, and then they read from that word down. This is something that's really bad, because normally with the word you need to read above it and then below it. If you only read after the word that you found, you're not going to find the answer usually, because you need to understand the bit before that as well. And this is another part of the distractors. Like, you need to almost learn where the distractors are. So for example, imagine you've got the sample test. You can, if you know the answer, look where the answer is, highlight it, and then check what it's, maybe A is the answer, check B and C. Why have they put that there? And where are they trying to distract you in the test? Now, in the text, sorry. Obviously don't do this in the exam, but it's a good strategy to almost try and find the distractors as you're practicing. Don't put a time limit on it, just try and look, because you'll get a bit more of an idea of what the examiner or the person that's written the test, you'll get more of an idea of what they're trying to do. And then hopefully you won't fall for that same trap in the exam.
Yeah, it's something we do in class. We do when you have more time as preparation. Don't always look at why answer A is the answer, but we also look at why answer B isn't the answer, and why answer C isn't the answer. When you do that for long enough, you do start to get into the mind of the examiners and the people who wrote these papers. And I think partly it goes back to what I was saying before. If you can understand the overall paragraph, which is often what you really need to do to get the answer, it really will help you.
Okay, let's move on. The next question is, can you guarantee that I will pass the OET if I study with you?
Well, no, in a word. You know, there's no guarantees in life, and be completely misleading you. You know, if anyone tells you come and study with us, we'll guarantee you get a pass. No, I mean, we'll work with you. We'll do what we can. You know, we can provide you with good materials, and you know, we'll give you a lot of input. And a lot of it is down to you as well, and kind of how much you put in. But we can't guarantee. I don't think anyone can really guarantee a pass. We'll do what we can, and you can do what you can, and hopefully together it's all good.
Yeah, with our courses we give so much homework. You've got to make sure that you do the homework. It's really important that you do that and that you apply yourself as much as possible. Why are there no past papers for OET? There isn't enough practice material. This is something that so many students ask us before they join our course. They say, why isn't there enough material? And yeah, it's quite a new exam still. So there are the sample papers on the OET website. And as premium preparation providers, for our school, we have a lot of extra material that OET have given us. That other people don't have access to. It's just because we are a premium school. Now, there's also a lot of material that we have made ourselves at the school. From Harmi and myself, because we've got our own online course, and because we know of the lack of materials, and there are some materials out there, but they're often not the highest quality. So what we've done is we've made sure that we've got high quality materials that we've made ourselves. So for example, if you join our course, if you join our online course or our face-to-face course, a lot of the material you get you will have never seen before, because it's been either made by us or it's been given to us by OET because of our premium preparation status. So yeah, sorry, there isn't a lot of material out there. But if you join a course with us, you will have material that you've never seen before. So that is a bonus. We are going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid. So thank you for joining us. Please make sure that you like the video, subscribe to us, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. All right, take care. Bye.